Okay, welcome to Afternoon Art Club. My name is Miss Kim, for those of you who are new, and I am very, very glad that you're here for Afternoon Art Club today. Today is our second session this October, and we started 2 weeks ago talking about 1-point perspective. So if you're new this week, if you have not joined us before, then I encourage you to watch session 1, because today we're going to be building on skills that we learned in the very first session. So if that's something that is new, if what we're talking about is new to you, or it's something that you're not familiar with, so I still have people joining. All right, so if it's something new to you or something you're not familiar with, then please go back and watch session 1 if you need some help, and then you can watch the video recording of session 2 to catch up. But I'm super happy that you're here today. I see some familiar faces, but also some new faces. So today we're going to be talking about some of the things that we started talking about last time. I want to do a quick review with you before we get started, and then I'm going to show you how to add on to the drawing that we started last week. I hope that all of you had an opportunity to start your drawings, and I can't wait to see what you've made. So let me start out by sharing my screen. I'm going to share my desktop screen with you so that I can sort of show you, review with you what we've done, and also show you a few things as well. So I'm going to go ahead and start out by sharing my screen. Let me get that up. All right. Okay, you can see my screen here. I'm also going to go ahead and pull up my chat box. Now, I want to remind you, and we talked about this a little bit last time, I want to remind you that when I have everybody muted, like I do right now, that if you have a question, to please put it in the chat box. For those of you who may not know where the chat box is located, it's located down in the center bottom of your screen. You can't see it on mine right now, but it's located at the bottom center of the screen. It looks like a little text bubble, and that is your chat box. So if you look in there, I'm going to just type a little hello message. So here's my getting ready to type in the chat box. I just typed, and you can see I've said hello in the chat box. So you should be able to see that in the chat. I see some hellos coming from you guys, so that tells me it's working. And if you have questions, there will be a time for you to ask questions by unmuting, but right now, if you have a question, please just type it in your chat box. And you can do that all along as I'm talking. So if I'm saying something and you don't quite understand, please throw that question in the chat box, and I'll be happy to stop and answer your question. So I want to start by reviewing the things that we talked about last time. So the very first thing we talked about last time was what 1-point perspective is. And we talked about how 1-point perspective shows you how to draw forms or shapes like a square into a 3-dimensional form. So we just turned this simple square into a 3-dimensional form. So again, if this is your first session, then you just need to go back and watch that first video about how to draw this in perspective. Hold on just a second. Someone's saying I have some audio trouble. Are you guys able to hear me clearly? Is it everybody that is hearing me funny, or am I coming across clearly to any of you? Throw that in the chat box. If you can hear me clearly, okay, I hear some okays. All right, so it may be coming across funny for some and not great for others, or okay for others. Again, if you're having trouble hearing, then it may be that it's going to be a little bit easier for you to hear. Okay, I hear some echoes and I hear some no echoes. Some of the echo may just be my office too. So there's not a lot I can do about that on my end, but what I can do is, hold on one second. Let me try if I switch to headphones and see if that makes it better. Actually can't. Those headphones don't work with my computer. I'll try to work on that for next week. I will do my best to make it better for next week. So if you're hearing a little bit of that, sorry for the technical difficulties. If you're not hearing an echo, awesome. If you are hearing one, I'll send a link to the YouTube video for tomorrow, which you should be able to hear more clearly. So that's where we're at on the audio issues. Okay, so now back to our review. So our very first lesson, we learned about finding a horizon line. So we drew a horizontal line and we labeled that horizon line. We also put a point on our horizon line that we called the vanishing point. And last time we talked about how all of the lines that connect to the vanishing point help our shapes look like three-dimensional forms. And we went through this practice sheet together. We did several of these shapes together in the video or in the lesson last week. And then I asked you guys to practice these at home. So I hope that those worked okay for you. But this was our first activity. Then we talked a little bit about creating a streetscape in 1-point perspective. And this is the one that we started together. I had some trees that I really quickly drew in, but I've taken those out just because I want to show you something else today with this drawing. But in our lesson in session 1, we talked about how to add the horizon line to our streetscape. We talked about how to add the vanishing point to get our streetscape. We drew our actual street together with the lines going down the center. We drew in a sidewalk and a little curb in our first session. We also drew some buildings. So we drew this very first building and then we drew one behind it. We drew some windows and some doors. And I'm going to show you today how to make those look a little bit more three-dimensional. And then I showed you how to do some trees. Now I've erased those and I'll take another minute to show you that again today. But today I want us to get from about where we're at here, so just about this, the very first steps of our drawing, and we're going to start to take it into a finished drawing. So depending on how much you've done, today I'm going to hopefully show you how to make, today I'm going to show you how to add details to that drawing. So I still have people coming in to class today. So we have some people still filtering in. If you're just joining us, we've just been reviewing so far what we talked about last session. If this is your first session, if this is your first week with us, remember that all the things that we learned in session 1, we're going to be building on today. So if you're confused, you might need to go back and watch session 1, but then you can watch the video of session 2 to jump right back in with this stuff. So here's what we're going to hope to be at the end of today. So we're going to finish up our streetscape. I'm going to show you how to add some details. You'll notice all these windows and doors are a lot more detailed in this one than in this one. So I'm going to show you how to add some details. I'm going to show you how to draw a little side street here in case you want your streetscape to have more than one street. I'm going to show you how to draw buildings that are a funny shape. So you'll notice that this building is kind of a funny shaped building. So I'm going to show you, and so is this one, show you a little bit about how to add buildings that are different shapes. I'm going to show you how to layer buildings so it looks like you have buildings behind buildings behind buildings, kind of like we have this one back here. So I'll show you that. I'm going to show you how to add a sign like the one you see, a storefront sign, or maybe something like this, like a little billboard on top. And then the last thing that I will show you today is how to add color to your drawing. So mine is not 100% finished, but I'm getting there. And hopefully by the end of the month, by the next time we meet, you'll have a completely finished drawing. So let's get started with some of that. So again, as I'm showing you some things today, I want to give you, I want you to please throw any questions that you have into the chat box. So if you don't have your chat box open, go ahead and click on that little text bubble down in the center of your screen, the bottom center of your screen that says chat, and pull up your chat box so that we can, you can ask questions if you have them. Then I am going to give you an opportunity to turn on your mics and ask questions near the end. So first of all, let's get started on the things that we need to, the details that we want to add together. Again, don't forget to use that chat box if you have any questions. You're going to need to gather a few supplies from your supply kit or just from around the house. You're going to need a ruler. So I have a ruler here, and you're going to need a pencil with an eraser. It may also be useful for you to have just an extra eraser if you have one around. This is just an eraser that I had in my desk. Sometimes it's helpful because I'm almost out of eraser on my pencil. So that's all I'm going to need to get started. Later on in the class, if you have colored pencils or crayons or any kind of coloring medium that you want to use is going to work perfectly for this activity. So I'm not going to go back over the things that we learned how to do last time. We've already done a brief review with that. And if you need to know how to add the street or how to add any of these buildings, you're going to need to refer back to session 1. So there's a video link to that. I've sent everybody out via email. You should have received that video link, and I'll send the link again tomorrow for the first and second session. So this session and the first one. So the first thing I want to show you how to do is draw another building that looks like it's even taller and maybe off to the side a little bit. So we're going to start by drawing our shape first. And you'll remember that that's something that we did last time. Last time we started just by drawing a rectangle near the bottom of our paper. And then we drew a triangle roof. And then we connected those points back to the vanishing point to get our first building. We're going to do something similar to that here. So I'm going to start by drawing a rectangle, but I'm not going to draw on top of the buildings that I already have. I'm not drawing over the top of the buildings I already have. I'm going to draw a rectangle, but when I get to the top of this back building right there, you can see that line. When I get to the top of that back building, I'm going to stop, because I want it to look like it's behind that building, not in front of that building. And the best way for me to do that is to stop the line right there. So there's my first line. And then I want the other one to kind of come down here. I want it to look like it's sort of extending off the side here. So I want this one to still be behind this front building, but I'll see the back of it through the back of this building. That's a lot of words, but it'll make sense in a second. So I'm going to draw the second line, and I'm going to stop right there. So here's the building that I'm going to be drawing, and you can see that. And all I've done is draw 2 vertical lines, and I'm going to just close those 2 vertical lines and make it into a sort of a rectangle by drawing a line across the top, just like that. Okay, now I can erase any stray marks. I can also erase where the horizon line goes through the middle of that, because I won't be able to see where the sky meets the land in the middle of my building. So you can see that I should have something like that. I'm going to darken this line just so you can see it a little better. Okay, so I just start with a rectangle that looks like it's behind my first building and behind my second building. Everybody with me so far? All right. I hear several people saying that they hear echoes, and I hear some people saying that they have questions. If you have a question, type it in your chat box. I can't do anything about the echo on my end, but if you have a question, please type it in your chat box, and I'll be more than happy to answer it if I can. All right, so now I have this rectangle, this one I've drawn behind my 2 buildings here. I just drew 1 vertical line, a second vertical line, and a horizontal line to be the top of my building. And now I'm just going to do the same thing I did before. I'm going to connect these lines to the vanishing point to get where my buildings are going back into space. So I'm going to start, I always like to start with the point that's closest to the vanishing point. So that's going to be this top one right here. So I'm going to put my pencil on that corner. I'm going to line up my ruler with the vanishing point, just like that. And I'm going to connect it to the vanishing point, just like that. All right, and that's just kind of a light guideline. I haven't drawn it very, very dark. That just kind of shows me how it connects to the vanishing point. So all I did was put my pencil tip on the corner. I lined my pencil up with that point, and my pencil, or it's not my pencil, my ruler up with that point and with the vanishing point, and I drew my guideline, just like that. Okay. The second thing I'm going to do is decide where I want the back of this building to be. I don't want this to be a very deep building, so I'm just going to, you don't have to measure anything. This is going to be a vertical line. You can choose any point on your paper to put this vertical line. I'm just going to start here. I'm going to go from the top of my guideline, a vertical line, down to the top of that building. And I actually went over a little, so I'm going to erase that. And that's it. That's my building. So if you have a question, go ahead and type the question that you have into the chat box. If you have a question, go ahead and type the questions that you have into your chat box. Now, remember, we talked about this last time with our practice sheet. If I tried to connect this point with the vanishing point, I would draw right through the middle of my building, and I don't want to do that because it's not a see-through building. So I'm not going to draw that to the vanishing point, and the bottom of my building is hidden behind these other buildings. So now it looks like I have one building in front, one in the middle, and one in the back. We've created the illusion of space, looking like something is going in front, in the middle, and in the back. Okay? Simple enough? So this kind of just shows you how to keep layering buildings into your streetscape. Now, the second thing I want to show you is how to create kind of a funny shaped building. And I'm going to do that on this side of the paper. Yeah, if you're already finished, that is totally fine. If you're already finished with your streetscape drawing, someone asked, is it okay if they're already finished? Yes, it's okay if you've already went ahead and drawn all of the parts of your streetscape. I'm just showing you how to add to it. You can also make changes to it. You can also do a second one if you want. So if you have more paper and you want to do another one, you can start to add more details to it. So that's what I'm showing you how to do today. Last week, I asked you to go ahead and get started and start adding buildings. Today, I'm just showing you how to make your drawing maybe a little bit more dynamic. All right, so I'm going to show you how to make sort of a funny shaped building, and we're going to do that one over here. I'm going to start by drawing just one side of my building, and we're going to start with a vertical line like this. And I want this building to be kind of tall. So I'm going to go way up and come all the way down to the street, just like that. So this is a line way at the top and all the way down to the street. All right, now I want this building, I'm gonna draw, this is gonna be sort of a narrow building. I'm gonna draw the back of the building, just the very front shape of it. Wah, my pencil slipped. Actually, my ruler slipped. Okay, so I'm gonna draw the back of this building. Remember, I don't want to draw over the top of this one because I want it to look like it's behind it. So I have just the two basic shapes, kind of just like we did over here, the two vertical lines. And now I want to draw sort of a funny shaped roof. I want to have a building with one angled roof. And so I'm just going to go ahead and draw that angled roof in here, just like that. And I'm going to erase this. This is what the side of my building looks like. This is kind of a funky building. This was drawn by a modern architect, maybe. All right, so this is the first shape of my building. Remember, we always start with just a rectangle or just a triangle. We just start with a simple shape. And we're gonna go ahead and connect the lines to the vanishing point, just like we've been doing. This is nothing different. So I'm gonna start with the point that's closest to the vanishing point, this point right here. All right. Here we go. And we're going to draw a line from the corner, the point, to the vanishing point, just like that. Okay, and I'm going to do the same thing up here. Here's another point right here, and I'm going to draw a line from here to the vanishing point. These are guidelines, so you don't have to draw these very dark. So that kind of gives us a start with our building. And then depending on where we put our next vertical line right here, it could be a really long, skinny building, or if we put our line back here, it could be very, very short. I'm going to put mine kind of in the middle. It's going to be a little bit flat and long. So I'm going to put a vertical line just from my first guideline down to the street. I can erase the rest of that guideline because I don't need that anymore. That gives me sort of the base of the building, the footprint of my building. And then the only tricky part, and we practiced this on the roof line last time, it's not really very tricky, but it seems like it. I'm going to take my ruler and I'm going to put it on the line, the angle of my roof, the line of the angle of my roof. Do you see how that's parallel there? All right. Okay, so here we go. I've got that there. Now all I'm going to do is try to keep my ruler at that very same angle. I'm not tilting it around any. And I'm just going until I get to this point right here where I just made my vertical line meet my guidelines. I'm going to line my ruler up just like that. Line my ruler up. I'm just going to slide it over till we get here. And I'm just going to make a line. It's the same line. And that's the rest of the roof. And I can erase that guideline. Okay, so you don't have to do any funny shaped buildings on yours. If you just want to use rectangular shaped buildings, these are just details I'm showing you that are options for you when you're drawing your buildings. Yours does not have to look like mine. You don't have to have any kind of crazy shaped buildings. You can have just basic kind of cubes if you want that are the shapes of your buildings. It does not have to be really fancy. These are just extra things that you can add if you're interested. The main thing to remember if you're drawing a building that's kind of a funny shape is to start out by getting the basic shape of the building first. So I did 2 vertical lines and a diagonal line to get the basic shape of my building first. And then I connected the points to the vanishing point. So always start with your basic shape first and then draw the parts going back into space, connecting to the vanishing point. So a good example of that is right here. We have just a rectangle and a triangle. You could imagine drawing a house with just a rectangle and a triangle. But if we connected those points to a vanishing point, that's when it starts to look 3-dimensional. So just keep that in mind as you're drawing and adding shapes and sort of building your streetscape. It can be complicated. So you can have buildings in front of buildings in front of buildings. I have another kind of similarly shaped building that we just drew. But it does not have to be complicated. It can be very, very simple. All right, so the next thing I want to show you, it's really quick and easy, is how to draw a side street. So let's imagine that we want to create sort of an intersection here for another road to come this way. Okay, so we want a horizontal road. We don't just want a road going back. We want to make a right turn up here. So I'm going to choose where I want my right turn to be. And I'm just going to kind of find a spot. It needs to be below the horizon line, right? Because we won't have a road in the sky. And anything above the horizon line is the sky. So make sure you're below the horizon line to get a side road. And what I'm going to do is kind of find where this is where my street is. Yours could be in the middle or on the side. In this example, my road is a little bit to the right. In this one, my road is a little bit to the left. So I'm going to choose a spot, and I think I want mine to be about right here. And what I'm going to do is just draw from the road, I'm drawing a horizontal line. So this is straight, a straight line across, parallel with the horizon line. And I'm just going to draw a line that goes up to my building right there. So yeah, I just drew a little bit of a horizontal line right there up to my building. If I want this to be a really long road, I can put it back on that line, and I can actually keep extending it past the other side of my building. So maybe that road's going to keep going that direction. Okay. And I'm going to draw the other side. We need two sides, just like this road has a left and a right. If we were to take a turn, we would want our road to have both a left and a right side. So I'm going to just make another horizontal line, not far away. Remember, as we go back into space, things appear to be smaller and closer together. So this is kind of our road that is turning that way, that's turning to the right. And all I want to do is erase the sidewalk that's in there. All I need to do is erase my sidewalk. So it's just a street again. So I accidentally erased that line like that. And now it looks sort of like the road turns. Now we can even draw our sidewalks in there. I just draw another line, another horizontal line, keep it kind of close. Oh, I see some people that have that they drew lots of things like a city with people and a traffic light. That's awesome. I can't wait to see what that looks like. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and do that guy. That's like the curb. See? We could draw one on both sides if your street has a curb on both sides. That would be very cool. All right. So now we have a right turn that we've created. So that was really simple. We can add these little lines in our sidewalk, but if we do, because those lines would be going back into space, we would have to line that up with the vanishing point. So I'm going to put my pencil on the vanishing point and kind of just decide where those little lines might go. Something like that. So I just lined up where this was with the vanishing point. I didn't really measure anything. I just kind of guesstimated. I just make sure that my ruler is on the vanishing point. And then I would just kind of keep angling it, making sure that my ruler is on the vanishing point. If my ruler was way over here, if I'm making lines on these over here, they would almost appear kind of flat. They would look kind of like this. That's how it would look like it's going back into space. So people, someone asked how many they've missed. The only thing, if you are just joining us, if this is your first class with us, the only thing you've missed is 1 week. And we have there's a video of that session. We videotaped these. So you can go back and watch that first video to kind of help you get a feel for what you've missed. And you can catch up. It's really easy to catch up. All right, so let's see. Okay, we've got just a couple more minutes. I want to show you a few more details. I want to show you how to add some details to your doors and some details to your windows really quickly. And then I want to tell you about adding color. And then we'll be ready to answer some questions that you guys might have. So I want you to take a look at my doorways right here. This is one of the doors on one of my buildings. I have another one right here. You can see these doorways as well. I've added some lines that make them look more three-dimensional than this one looks. That one kind of looks flat and two-dimensional, you see? And this one looks a little bit more three-dimensional. So I want to show you how to do that. It's actually really, really simple. So the first step, we're going to make this door that I showed you how to make last time. We're going to make that three-dimensional. So all I'm going to do is take my ruler, and I want my ruler to be horizontal. So it's going to be going from side to side. And I'm going to come up not to the doorway edge that's closest to me, but the one that's farthest away from me. You see where I am? Not this first one closest to me, but the one that's farthest away from me. I'm going to line my ruler up at the bottom of that, just horizontally. And I'm going to draw a line going into the doorway, just like that. And that's all I had to do to make this look three-dimensional. That was pretty simple. Now it looks like the sidewalk is kind of going into the doorway of my building. So just that tiny line, adding a line from here, from that corner of the doorway into the doorway, made it look like the sidewalk is leading into that doorway area and starts to make it look a little bit more three-dimensional. Now let me show you about windows, for example. Let's say you want your windows to look a little bit more three-dimensional because, for example, right here, if you were taking a look at this window from this viewpoint, you could see the little window frame that's around the window, or maybe kind of into the edge of that window on two sides. So let me show you how to make that look more three-dimensional. Let's take these right here, for example. We are going to, if we were looking at it from this direction, we would see the window frame on this side and maybe a little bit of the top of the window frame right there. So the first thing I want to do is draw that little inside edge, and that's just going to be a vertical line. I'm going to put my ruler straight up and down, and I'm going to just scooch it over a little bit, kind of into the window, and just make some vertical lines, just like that. Already we're getting sort of the impression of something that's a little bit more three-dimensional. Then we would also see a little bit of the bottom of these window jambs. So what I'm going to do is put my pencil, let's see, I'm going to come in a little bit, and I'm going to add, where am I adding this? Got myself confused all of a sudden. Okay, I'm going to put my ruler on the vanishing point, and I'm just going to add a little sliver of space down at the bottom of these windows right there. So if it's below the vanishing point like this, you should be able to see the bottom. If it's above the vanishing point, you'll be able to see the top. So I'm lining up with the vanishing point and just doing a little sliver at the bottom, just like that, to give it a little bit more of a three-dimensional appearance. So now we've just added some depth to that. All I did was kind of draw a line straight down. I put my ruler on the vanishing point, and I just went up a little bit from the edge of the window and made a line. And that just gave it a little bit more dimension. Now you can also add details to your windows, like little window panes, or you could divide your windows into like two window panes so that they might look like they open, for example, just something simple like that. Just using vertical lines. Something simple like that. So it's not difficult to add these details, but it really does help bring your drawing to life. Just by adding a little line right there, our doorway now looks more three-dimensional. Just by adding a little bit, a few lines, it helped our windows look like they're more three-dimensional. So these are all simple things that you can do to make something look more three-dimensional. All right, now, again, if you have questions, please put them in the chat box. I'll be happy to answer them. I've got one more thing to show you before we're gonna open it up for questions. So the first thing I wanna show you, I want to put a sign on this building, and I want it to say what the name of the building is. So if I wanted, like so many stores have signs on the front of them, if I want this building, actually I'm gonna do this one because it's a little closer to me, and I think it'll be a little easier for you to see. I want to draw just a rectangular sign. So I'm going to start out by just connecting my ruler to the vanishing point and kind of guessing where I want my sign to go. And I kind of want mine, I know I want it above the door, so that's probably a good spot for it. I connected my pencil to the vanishing point, and this just kind of picked a spot on my building. And then I want to go up a little bit to get the top of the sign. Again, connect your ruler to the vanishing point. Just scoot your ruler up so you can see where your sign goes. All right, So this is just kind of some guidelines for my sign. Now I can put edges on it if I want to, but I don't have to. These lines can actually be erased if you want it just to look like they're letters attached to the building and that it's not a rectangular sign. That's fine too. All right, now to write your letters, you want to remember that as things are farther away from you, they're going to look smaller and they're going to look closer together. And as they get closer to you this direction, so farther away from you, they're smaller, closer to you, they're bigger. And I like to draw sort of a middle guideline when I'm going to be writing letters. That just helps me kind of keep things straight. And this doesn't have to be exact. I just like to draw a little guideline around the middle to help me keep things straight. And I'm going to call this, I'm just going to call it store, just because that's something simple. And I'm going to try to write my letters smaller on the left-hand side and bigger as they get towards me. And I'm going to also try to make them closer together, farther away, and a little bit spaced out this way. So I know that if I'm writing the word store, and I'm just going to write this for my own reference, if I'm writing the word store, then O is the center letter. So I like to start by putting O kind of in the middle. Okay, so now I know that this is going to be an O. I want it to be vertical, nice and vertical. There's an O, kind of right in the middle. So I know that the letters on this side need to be larger and farther apart. So I'm going to go ahead and write my R, keeping that line vertical. And then an E. I've maybe made my R a little too big. This is a great thing about perspective drawing is that you should always be doing it with a pencil and ready to erase. All right. And then the lines of your E should kind of follow the perspective lines that you've already drawn. Okay, so I've got the last half of my words and I just need the first half now. So I just need to get a T in there. And an S. Okay, so now try that one more time. Try to make sure that your letters are looking smaller as they go back into space and a little closer together. So my S and my T are closer together than my R and my E. So you can practice that. That's really, really tricky. But if you're up for a challenge, you can add the names of your stores or your buildings right onto the surface of your buildings. The last thing you're going to do when you're ready to, once you've got sort of all your buildings designed and in place, is to start adding color. And the way I like to do this is by adding color first to the buildings closest to me and working my way out. I also went ahead and added color to my street. So that kind of helped me just think about what colors would be next to each other because I knew all of the different buildings would touch my street. Now, when you add color to these, and I'm using just some colored pencils I had at my desk. These are just little twisty colored pencils. But you have, if you got a kit from us, you have a little set of colored pencils. You also have crayons. You can use the watercolor paint. You can use markers. You can use any kind of coloring materials that you have available to you at home. You don't have to use what's in the kit. You can use whatever you want that you have access to. And when you do that, I just want you to think about how you can add the illusion of depth into your drawing. So for example, when I'm coloring or adding color to these, you might notice that the farther away on this side of the building, it's a little bit darker. I've added some darker colors to kind of make it look like it's a little bit more in shadow. And right under this window area, I've added a little bit of shadows. So you can add shadows and highlights by pressing down. So for example, I might want this part of this building to be darker because it's farther away from me. So I can press down with my colored pencil or crayon a little bit harder. So you can just keep an eye here. I'm pressing down harder. and then just lightening up on the pressure as I move closer to myself. And I just kind of keep going over that to blend it together until it looks like a nice, smooth transition. So I'm just going to keep on adding color. I want it to be darker the farther away from me that it is. Okay, so you can kind of see that. Any coloring material that you have will be great for this. So if you want to use crayons, if you want to use watercolor paint, if you want to use colored pencil, if you want to use markers, whatever your preferred coloring medium is will work just fine. So you'll notice it's a little bit darker farther away from me and a little bit lighter the closer to me it gets. That just helps give the illusion of depth. And then in our doorways, we can make that nice and dark because under the doorway, it might be really shaded. So we'd have a lot of shadow in that area under our doorways. So you can see, I might even want to bring the color of the road into this bottom part of the sidewalk to really give it the illusion of depth. So I want you to think about some of those details as you're continuing to finish up your drawings. Some of you may have had a really challenging time. You may have thought it was really challenging to do one-point perspective. Some of you that have done it before may have seemed really, really simple to you, but it's just kind of a slow process. You just need to take your time. So as you're adding some of these details, please just take your time and think about how you can connect things to the vanishing point to create depth or the illusion of depth. And think about adding some of these little details so that you really get a good result. Now, in just one moment, I'm going to stop sharing first. Hold on a second. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is stop sharing. And then yes, at the end, we're kind of at the end, and I'm going to give you an opportunity to ask questions. If you want to talk with me or you want to ask me something, I'll be happy to help you with that then. Okay, give me just one moment first before we start that. Before I give you the opportunity to ask questions, because I do stop the recording for the time that you guys ask questions. Before we do that, I want to tell you what your final assignment will be with this, because the next time we meet, we're not going to be doing perspective drawing at all. So we'll be all the way done with our perspective drawings at the end of this session. And then next time we meet, we're going to be starting something completely new. We're going to be talking about symmetry. We'll have a completely different project next time we meet. So to finish up your perspective drawing, I want you to go ahead and add details as much as you can to your drawing, add color to your drawing. And what I would love for you to do is to take a photograph, the best photograph that you can take of it, lay your paper flat down on a table, and you can use a phone or your computer or anything that you can to take a photograph of your artwork and email it to me. Because at the end of this session, at the end of December, we're going to be having an online exhibition of student work. And in that online exhibition, we want to show your artwork. We're going to have a little artist gallery, and your work is going to be featured there. So if you send me a photograph of that, then we'll have that image. If you're having trouble getting photographs of your work, we will have a time in December where you can drop off all the artworks you've made in Afternoon Art Club, and the people at the museum will photograph them for you. So if you need help with that, we're happy to help. But if you can, once you finish, take a photo of your artwork, send it to me by email. And I'm going to show you this. Here we go. You probably have this already, but this is my email address, FLOMUS_EDU@me.com. So that's my email address. And you can reach out to me there at any time. I'm always happy to help. Now, I'm getting ready in just one moment to stop the recording, and we will be ready to unmute. You will be able to unmute and ask a question if you have one. So let me please stop the recording. For those of you watching on video, we'll see you soon. And for those of you who are in our Zoom class, hold on right where you are.